attacking me. Come now, brother.
He doesn't look like your son. That's what the officer said, right before everything spiraled into chaos. It was just another quiet Monday night. A hardworking black nurse stops for gas with her 10-year-old son. But within minutes, two white officers turn a routine stop into a nightmare. They didn't see a nurse. They didn't see a child. They saw targets. When her son started gasping for air, they didn't help. They slapped the inhaler from his hands. But what they didn't know? This family wasn't alone. And the man about to step out of that black SUV, they messed with the wrong sister. This is not just a story. It's a wake-up call. If you believe in justice, in family, and standing up, don't scroll. Watch until the end, because the ending will stay with you. It was 9:03 p.m. when Alicia Morgan pulled into Pump 4 at a rundown gas station off Route 74. The drizzle had just begun, soft, steady, painting the asphalt in oily streaks that shimmered under the flickering overhead lights. The parking lot was almost empty. One old pickup truck, a soda can rolling near the curb. Quiet, but not peaceful. The kind of quiet that makes your gut tighten instead of relax. Alicia stepped out of her gray Camry, shoulders stiff from a 12-hour shift in the ER. Her navy scrubs were still damp from a coffee spill earlier that day. Her name badge, A. Morgan, RN, swung slightly as she moved, the only sound besides the faint buzz of overhead lamps. In the back seat, her son Isaiah, age 10, sat hunched over his tablet, hoodie up, mask on. His inhaler lay beside him, just in case. He didn't know tonight would test everything his mother had ever taught him about staying calm when the world wasn't. Alicia had just slid her credit card into the pump when she noticed the police cruiser, black and white, engine idling, parked near the air machine about 30 feet away. Inside, two officers sat like statues behind fogged windows, silhouettes with badges. She felt it immediately, that subtle weight, that shift in the air you can't explain but every black mother knows. She glanced at the rearview mirror. Isaiah was still tapping away on his tablet, earbuds in, calm. She exhaled and focused on the pump. 4 gallons. 5. Then, the cruiser doors opened. Two white officers stepped out, not fast, not aggressive, just deliberate, like they'd already made up their minds. One was older, heavy-set, red-necked, sunburned in the way of men who spent too much time barking orders in daylight. Officer Rick Holloway. The other was leaner, younger, twitchy, constantly cracking his knuckles. Officer Mike Doyle. They didn't speak right away, just walked toward her like they owned the ground. Alicia straightened, turned to face them with the kind of calm you wear like armor. "Evening," she said. "You own this car, ma'am?" Holloway asked, eyes never landing on hers, just sweeping her badge, her pockets, her shoes. "Yes, sir," she replied. "Bought it last month. Plates are current." She reached for her ID and registration, moving slowly, deliberately. Doyle circled behind her, walking toward the back of the Camry, pretending to check the license plate. "We had a report," he muttered. "Car matching this make and model. Just doing our job." "Of course," Alicia said, handing over the documents. "Here's everything you need." Neither of them looked. Holloway let the papers dangle in his fingers like junk mail. "You work at Central General?" he asked, squinting at her badge. "I do. ER nurse. Night shift." "Funny," he said. "You don't look like someone who drives a car like this." Alicia blinked. Once, then twice. She didn't answer. She'd heard it before. That loaded sentence dressed like a compliment, but dripping with insult. Inside the car, Isaiah paused his game. He couldn't hear every word, but he knew the signs. The way his mom's shoulders squared, the pause in her breath, the fact that she hadn't smiled in over a minute. Isaiah slipped one earbud out and tapped his phone. Opened the messaging app. Typed fast. 2 cops. Mom in trouble. Gas station. RT-74. Please come now. He hit send. Contact name, Uncle D. Then he opened voice memos, hit record, and slipped the phone under his hoodie. Alicia hadn't noticed. She was focused, locked into survival mode. "You got anything in that car we should know about?" Holloway asked, stepping in closer. "My son," she answered. 10 years old, doing his spelling homework. Doyle leaned down and peered through the rear window. Huh, he said. That him? Looks older. Alicia nodded, voice steady. That's him, and I'd appreciate if you didn't scare him. But that's when she saw it. A small, taped-up sign on the gas station door, printed in red. Security cameras, temporarily out of order, under maintenance. Her stomach sank. No witnesses, no recordings, just the hum of fluorescent lights and two men who now shifted slightly, as if they'd seen the sign too. Well, well, Holloway murmured, a thin smile playing across his face. Looks like it's just us tonight. And just like that, the air changed. The polite tone vanished. The routine check became something else, something meaner, predatory. Isaiah sat frozen, his phone still blinking red beneath his jacket. He could hear every word now, and what he heard wasn't safety. It was the calm before the storm. Alicia could feel it, the shift. It wasn't just the lack of eye contact or the fact that they hadn't looked at her ID. It was the silence between their words, the kind of silence that hides decisions already made. I'd like my ID back now, she said, voice level, one hand still resting on the gas pump. There's no issue here. Holloway didn't respond. He just stared at her like she was something stuck to his boot. Then with exaggerated casualness, he tossed the documents back at her chest. They didn't land. They fluttered down, one corner catching a puddle, the rest skidding across the wet pavement. You getting smart with me, nurse lady? He asked, stepping closer. I'm talking to you like a citizen, she replied, stooping slowly to gather the papers. You asked for ID. I gave it. There's no probable cause here. Doyle chuckled, still circling. Maybe she's hiding something, he said, now leaning in close to the passenger side window. You seen how she keeps looking back at the kid? I'm looking at my son, Alicia said firmly, straightening up again. He's 10. He's scared. You're scaring him. Holloway's lip curled. 10, huh? What kind of mom brings a kid out here this late? Then he added, quieter but sharper. You sure he's even yours? Alicia's jaw tightened. Don't talk about my son. Inside the car, Isaiah's chest had started to rise and fall faster. His mouth was dry. The air felt thinner, like something was pressing down on the roof. He reached for his inhaler, held it, didn't use it yet, trying to stay calm. You want to play games? Doyle snapped suddenly, rounding back toward Alicia. Go ahead, call someone. Hell, call the goddamn president. Alicia pulled out her phone, not fast, not threatening, just with a mother's urgency. But Holloway moved first. In one swift motion, he slapped it from her hand. The phone clattered to the ground and slid under the rear tire. You don't make calls when we're talking to you, he barked. That's my property, Alicia shouted, instinctively stepping forward. And I haven't done anything wrong. What happened next happened fast, but it burned into Isaiah's mind like fire on film. Holloway shoved her, hard, backward into the side of the car. The sound of her back hitting the door was sharp, metallic. She cried out, more shock than pain. But before she could recover, Doyle grabbed her wrist and yanked it up behind her. Stop resisting, he growled, twisting her arm. You're under detainment until we sort this out. My son is watching, Alicia cried. Let me go. He's watching. He's faking, Doyle sneered, jerking his head toward the back seat. That little shit's just putting on a show. Isaiah's fingers were shaking now. His breath came in short, shallow gulps. He fumbled with the inhaler, tried to press it, missed. His hands were slick with sweat, his vision blurry. Mom, he wheezed, voice barely audible. Mom, I can't. He's having an asthma attack, Alicia screamed, struggling against Doyle's grip. He needs his inhaler. Shut the hell up, Holloway snapped. Then he did the unthinkable. He yanked open the back door, reached inside, and slapped the inhaler from Isaiah's hand. No kid fakes a damn medical emergency just 'cause his mama got herself cuffed, he spat. Isaiah let out a dry, gasping cry. His small body folded forward, hands clutching his chest. Alicia broke free from Doyle for a split second, lunging toward her son. She grabbed the inhaler off the floor, jammed it into his hands. Baby, now, press it now. Doyle tackled her from behind again, pulling her away. That's it, he shouted. That's resisting. You just earned yourself a real charge, sweetheart. You're hurting her, Isaiah screamed, voice raw between choking gasps. "Oh, now the little one's got a mouth too," Holloway hissed, slamming the car door shut again. "You both think you're above the law tonight?" Alicia was crying now, but not from pain, from rage, from the helplessness of a mother watching her child suffocate while wearing a badge on her back. And Isaiah, blinking, gasping, the red light on his hidden recorder still glowing, kept whispering between breaths, "Uncle D, please hurry." Then it happened. Tires screeching, rubber tearing across pavement. A black SUV roared into the lot and slammed to a stop behind the cruiser. Both officers froze, and the door opened. The black SUV skidded to a stop, tires hissing against wet concrete. For a heartbeat, the world went still. Even the buzzing overhead lights seemed to pause. Rain drizzled silently down the windshield as the driver's door opened. Out stepped a man in a tailored black suit, tall, broad-shouldered, and walking with the calm authority of someone who didn't need to raise his voice to own a room. Derek Morgan, Alicia's brother, and the sitting mayor of Raleigh. He didn't yell, didn't run. He walked forward like the pavement belonged to him. Holloway instinctively reached for his belt, halfway between defense and ego. Doyle stiffened, hand twitching toward his taser. But then Derek did something that stopped them both cold. He raised a leather badge holder high in one hand, opened it with a single flick. The golden federal seal caught the gas station light like a blade. "Mayor Derek Morgan, United States Department of Public Safety," he said, voice low but sharp enough to slice through rain. "Remove your hands from my sister, right now." Silence. Real, crushing silence. Doyle blinked. Holloway hesitated. "She was resisting," Holloway finally muttered, his voice suddenly uncertain. "No," Derek said flatly. "What she was doing was surviving." He took another step forward. "You laid hands on a registered nurse, a mother, on her private property, in front of her child, with no warrant, no cause. And now, you're going to answer for it." Doyle tried to recover. "We had reason to believe." "You had no reason," Derek snapped. "You saw a black woman in a decent car. You saw her badge, her name. Her hands were visible the entire time. You ignored every procedure in your book because you thought nobody would notice." He gestured behind him. 2 marked patrol units pulled up, quiet but fast. No sirens, just blue lights swirling in the mist. From the first vehicle stepped a sergeant with silver in his beard and weariness in his eyes. "Orders from Central," he said. "Standing by for your directive, Mayor Morgan." Derek didn't even blink. "Officers Holloway and Doyle are to be relieved of duty, disarmed, and placed in administrative custody, effective immediately." "What?" Holloway barked, turning to the other officers. "You can't be serious. You're taking his word for it? He's family." "And a federal official," the sergeant replied coldly. "And you? You just got caught." 2 younger officers approached with gloves already on. Doyle backed up a step. "This is bullshit. She provoked us." Holloway pulled the belt from his waist with a sneer and slammed it on the hood of his cruiser. "Bitch should have stayed home," he muttered. "None of this would have happened." Derek's voice dropped to a new low, one filled with steel. "You just sealed your suspension, Officer Holloway. Keep talking, and I'll make sure you walk straight into a felony." Across the lot, paramedics from a red and white ambulance were already moving. One, a short-haired woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, rushed toward Alicia and knelt beside Isaiah. "Vitals unstable," she said quickly. "Kids wheezing, oxygen's low, mom's blood pressure's spiking." Alicia, still shaking, whispered, "Please, just help him." "You're going," Derek said gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. "And I'm going with you." He helped her to her feet while the EMTs lifted Isaiah onto a stretcher. The boy's face was pale, lips tight around the inhaler. He gripped his mother's hand like a lifeline. Derek leaned in, brushing Isaiah's curls back from his forehead. "You did good, buddy," he said. "You saved your mom tonight." As the stretcher rolled toward the ambulance, Alicia turned to Derek. "Dee, how did you know?" she asked, voice ragged. He gave a small smile, half sorrow, half pride. "Isaiah texted me, and..." He held up her son's phone. "He recorded everything." Behind them, the gas station lights flickered again. Backup officers were placing Doyle and Holloway in separate cruisers. One officer handed over the phone Alicia had dropped. Another gathered her scattered documents, placing them carefully in a plastic evidence bag. As the ambulance doors closed and the red lights began to spin, Alicia looked out the rear window. She saw Holloway cuffed, red-faced, and still snarling at no one. She saw Doyle sitting on the curb, head in his hands. And then she saw her brother, still standing tall, arms crossed, jaw tight. The streets of Raleigh weren't quiet anymore. Not tonight. The ambulance had only just pulled away when the video began to move. It started as a whisper, a low-resolution clip uploaded from a private account. No tags, no title, just a 10-year-old boy's trembling voice, a mother's screams, in the cold tone of two officers drunk on power. By sunrise, it had over 400,000 views. By noon, it was the #1 trending video in the state of North Carolina. By nightfall, it had cracked 1 million. The title was updated: Nurse Assaulted While Son Suffers Asthma Attack. Caught on hidden recording. No edits, no music, no fancy graphics, just truth, and that was enough. At City Hall, the mood was no longer clinical, it was explosive. The same conference room where Alicia had sat in a quiet shock hours earlier now buzzed with urgency. Staffers, lawyers, city aides, all gathered around one glowing screen. Paused in the middle was a freeze frame. Alicia's body slammed against her Camry, Isaiah's face twisted in pain just beyond the window. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Mayor Derek Morgan stood at the head of the table, tablet in one hand, jaw locked tight. "Release the footage officially," he said. "Now." "But sir," one advisor cautioned, "shouldn't we vet it first? Blur the child's face?" "It's already out there, and we're not here to hide anything," Derek interrupted. "We're here to stand beside them." By mid-afternoon, every major news outlet had picked up the story. CNN, nurse brutalized at traffic stop. Hidden recording exposes abuse. The Washington Post, 10-year-old saves mother with secret recording. NBC, mayor calls for accountability after sister assaulted by police. Alicia's name trended nationwide, but she wasn't at home reading headlines. She was in a quiet recovery room at Central General. Her left shoulder was in a sling. Her son was resting in a hospital bed beside her, breathing steadily now. The inhaler, scuffed, cracked, but still working, sat like a trophy on the side table. Isaiah hadn't said much. He just held his mom's hand, tight. Alicia turned to him gently. "You scared?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "I was," he whispered. "Not now." Outside, something rare was happening. People weren't just angry. They were activated. Protests began, but not the kind with shouting and broken signs. These were vigils, marches, gatherings, nurses still in scrubs, teachers with students, pastors, veterans, 1,000 strong by sundown. Candles in one hand, phones in the other, playing the audio clip on loop. In front of the Raleigh Police Department, someone had chalked across the pavement, "Protect Black children, believe Black mothers." The following morning, Derek stood before the press. No flags, no spotlight, just a plain podium in a beige government room filled with flashing cameras and rising tension. He didn't use a script. "Last night," he began, "2 officers in our city crossed every line of decency and law. They detained a nurse without cause. They used force on an unarmed civilian. And worst of all, they denied medical help to her child. A child." There was silence. No clicks, no murmurs, just a collective intake of breath. They thought no one would notice, that the gas station's cameras were down, that no one would speak up. He paused, his eyes darkened. But they didn't count on a 10-year-old with a phone, a boy who, in the middle of an asthma attack, pressed record to protect his mom. "And now," he gestured behind him. The screen lit up. Still frames from the video appeared. Alicia's terrified face. The moment Doyle reached into the back seat. Isaiah's inhaler knocked aside. The exact second Holloway shoved her. No blurs, no filters, just evidence. Back at the precinct, it was a different kind of storm. Holloway sat cuffed to a metal bench in the internal affairs holding room. His face was flushed red, not from regret, but rage. Doyle paced like a caged animal, muttering under his breath. "This is bullshit," he spat. "They're crucifying us for doing our job. That kid? That mom? They set us up." Across the room, a younger officer said nothing. He looked away, ashamed. A clipboard arrived shortly after. Formal charges filed. Excessive force, child endangerment, assault without cause obstruction, filing a false report, and more were expected. The department moved quickly. Internal suspension, badge revocation, public apology drafted, though Derek refused to sign it. "This isn't a PR cleanup," he said. "This is about real change." By Thursday, national figures had weighed in. Senators called for investigation. Activists organized rallies in D.C. Celebrities amplified the story on social media. But none of it mattered more than what happened on the courthouse steps that Friday morning. Alicia stood quietly, dressed in a navy coat, sling still on. Isaiah beside her, in a button-up shirt and dark jeans. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just looked straight ahead. Derek stepped up to the mic once more. "This family didn't ask to be a symbol," he said. "They didn't want a spotlight. They wanted safety, respect, fairness, what we all deserve." He glanced at Alicia, then down at Isaiah. But in a moment of fear, they chose to act with courage. And that changed everything. Across town at a small elementary school in southeast Raleigh, a teacher paused her lesson. She looked at her fifth graders, bright-eyed, squirmy, half listening, and asked, "Do any of you know who Isaiah Morgan is?" Half the room raised their hands. One little girl whispered, "He saved his mom." And the class fell silent. The courtroom was packed, but not with reporters chasing headlines, not with protesters holding signs. It was filled with neighbors, nurses still in scrubs, janitors on their lunch breaks, teachers holding their students' hands. It was filled with people who knew, who had lived what Alicia had lived, even if not in the same way. Some sat silently with hands clenched in their laps. Others gripped tissues. All of them were there not for drama, but for justice. Alicia sat near the front, her shoulders still wrapped tight in gauze under a charcoal gray blouse. She didn't wear makeup, didn't need to. Her presence alone was power. Beside her sat Isaiah, his small hand wrapped tightly around hers. He wore a button-down shirt and navy blue pants. He looked like a boy headed to church, but his eyes looked like they'd aged 10 years since that night. He hadn't smiled much since the ambulance, but he hadn't cried either. He was watching, absorbing, learning how the system worked, or didn't. The bailiff called the room to order. "All rise." The judge, a black woman in her late 50s, stern eyes behind frameless glasses, took her seat. "This court is now in session for the matter of State versus Holloway and Doyle." The room exhaled, sat. The prosecution started with the video. No speeches, no setup, just a screen. The lights dimmed and the footage began. From the scratchy audio of Alicia saying, "There's no issue here," to the thud of her body hitting metal, to Isaiah's wheezing breaths. The courtroom heard everything. And then the slap, followed by Doyle's voice. "That little shit's faking." Gasps filled the room. Not theatrical ones, just pain, recognition. The kind of gasp you give when truth sounds like your own memory. The video ended. The lights came back on. No one moved. The prosecutor stood. "We could rest here," she said quietly, "but we won't." Alicia took the stand. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. Her voice was calm, controlled. The voice of a woman who had gone over that night 1,000 times in her mind. "I wasn't scared for myself," she said. "I was scared they wouldn't let me get to my son's inhaler in time." She paused. "I've treated bruises caused by badges. I never thought I'd wear one." The defense tried to rattle her. They asked if she raised her voice. She answered yes, when her son couldn't breathe. They asked if she touched the officers. She said no, until they laid hands on her first. They asked if she taught her son to record. She looked toward Isaiah. "I taught him to protect himself, because I can't always be there." Isaiah wasn't asked to testify, but the judge allowed his recording to be played in full. It was short, raw, devastating. You could hear the panic in his breath, the cracking of his voice, the desperation in his, "Mom, I can't." And then the slap, not on Alicia, but on him, followed by Holloway's voice. "No kid fakes an episode just because his mama's in cuffs." When the clip ended, even the court stenographer had tears in her eyes. The defense scrambled. Holloway's lawyer claimed misunderstanding, said it was a tense situation, escalated by confusion, said Alicia appeared aggressive, said Isaiah was manipulative for his age. The courtroom stayed cold. Doyle's lawyer tried worse. He said Isaiah was coached, said Alicia had an attitude problem, said the Camry looked like a dealer's car. The jury didn't flinch. Then came a surprise witness, the technician from the gas station, an older white man in a faded polo. He approached the stand like someone used to being ignored. He cleared his throat and said, "Just the morning of the incident, I reconnected the security system." The courtroom froze. The footage? Time-stamped, clear, synchronized perfectly with Isaiah's audio. 2 angles, one from the pump, one from above the storefront. Both showed exactly what Alicia had described, and more. Holloway laughing, Doyle shoving, Isaiah gasping. There was no denying it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, not because they weren't sure, but because they wanted to get it right. When they returned, the 4-person stood, face pale but determined. "We, the jury, find Officer Richard Holloway and Officer Michael Doyle guilty on all counts: excessive force assault, child endangerment, obstruction of justice, falsifying incident report, abuse of authority." The courtroom exhaled. Alicia didn't cheer. She didn't clap. She just closed her eyes and breathed, like something had been released that had been trapped inside her chest for years. Isaiah squeezed her hand. The judge's final words echoed. "This court finds both defendants unfit to serve in law enforcement in any capacity in the United States of America. You are hereby stripped of all badges, rights, and protections under that title. And pending sentencing, you will remain in federal custody." There was no applause, only silence. Heavy, reverent, like justice had finally been spoken out loud, and everyone was holding their breath to honor it. Outside, the courthouse steps were full again, but no shouting, just people standing shoulder to shoulder. Some held candles, some held nothing. Most just held space, witnessing, not protesting, not celebrating, just witnessing. Alicia and Isaiah stepped into the sunlight together. Dozens of people moved aside to let them pass. One woman, middle-aged and tired-eyed, reached out and touched Alicia's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not staying silent." Alicia nodded once, then looked down at her son. "He's the one who didn't stay silent," she said. From the crowd, Derek stepped forward. He placed something small in Isaiah's hand, a badge, bent, cracked, sealed in glass. "This was mine," he said. "From when I left the force 15 years ago. I kept it to remind myself who I never wanted to become." He looked Isaiah in the eye. "You reminded this city of something it forgot. That justice isn't just a word." Isaiah didn't say anything. He just held the badge tight and didn't let go. 3 weeks later, on a rainy Tuesday morning, the Raleigh City Council gathered in a packed chamber. But this time, there were no protests, no shouts, no sirens, only quiet. The kind of quiet that follows a storm. At the center of the room, Mayor Derek Morgan stood before the microphone with a resolution in hand. It bore a new name, the Isaiah Morgan Act. The law passed unanimously. From now on, all traffic stops within city limits would require body cams and dash cams, without exception. Any officer who deactivates, tampers with, or conceals footage would face criminal prosecution. A new civilian oversight committee would review misconduct complaints monthly, with Alicia Morgan serving as lead advisor. Alicia didn't want the role at first. She wasn't a politician. She was tired, worn, still healing. But when she walked into that room, a nurse's ID still hanging from her neck, sling finally off, people listened, because she didn't speak as a victim. She spoke as a mother, as a citizen, as someone who had earned the right to demand better. Isaiah returned to school the following Monday, No reporters followed. No teachers made speeches. But he noticed something. Kids, and the ones who used to barely nod, now gave him space when he walked through the halls. Not out of fear, but respect. Some asked what it was like. He just shrugged and said, "Loud." Others asked if he wanted to be a cop one day. He shook his head. "Number, I want to be a doctor," he said, "but I'll remember what I saw." One afternoon, a classmate handed him a folded piece of notebook paper. On it was a crayon drawing, a small boy holding an inhaler, a big man in a suit standing behind him. Both were facing a storm and standing still. Isaiah folded it gently and put it in his backpack. He didn't say anything, but that night he slept with the badge Derek gave him, still sealed in its glass frame, on the table next to his bed. Alicia went back to her night shift 2 weeks later. It wasn't easy. Every time she passed a police cruiser, her breath caught. Every time someone in a uniform walked into the ER, her hands tensed. But then something happened. A woman, older, weary, holding her chest, reached for Alicia's hand as she adjusted the blood pressure cuff. "You're her, right?" the woman whispered. "The nurse from the gas station?" Alicia nodded once, softly. The woman gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "You made it easier for the next nurse who looks like you." Alicia didn't cry. She just nodded again. Because sometimes that's enough. Not revenge, not applause, just knowing you changed the path for someone else. The world doesn't always break in loud, dramatic ways. Sometimes injustice arrives in silence, disguised as routine. And sometimes courage doesn't roar. It wheezes, it whispers, it presses record while the world looks the other way. You don't need to be powerful to make change. You just need to be present, to see, to act, like a 10-year-old boy who couldn't breathe but still pressed send. If this story moved you, share it. Let it breathe beyond this screen, because someone out there might be one gas station away from needing to remember what justice can look like. Subscribe, speak up, never stay silent when it matters most.